Over the last few weeks, we've been speaking a lot about Kanye West, Donda, and Drake's Certified Lover Boy, but one big conversation that comes up when you're talking about two of the biggest hip-hop artists in the industry is the commercial success, and the numbers are officially in, guys, for CLB and for Donda. So today we'll be taking you through the chart success, the streaming numbers, the first week sales, and all the records that these guys broke with these two huge albums. So let us know your thoughts on all this news in the comments below, and how are you feeling overall about the overall impact and reach of these two huge albums this year?
Well, okay, because this is the thing, is that people have to understand that we're not going to be talking about the music for the first time in a long time. We're only going to be talking about the numbers, and we're just going to be diving into different things that we feel as if are important, because at the end of the day, like, people will often have the argument that all numbers don't matter, but to a certain extent they do, because it has a direct correlation to, how many people are, listening to the music, who's getting impacted by it, and what's the overall outreach about, with this project. Because yes, like the numbers do not dictate the quality in the music. I don't think that that's a thing. Like, I feel as if there's a lot of underground artists that are not putting up these numbers, that are making some timeless projects. But at the end of the day, it's like Drake and Kanye have this Midas touch where they could put anything out there and it'll do crazy numbers.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, like, if I were to talk about, what I think is the best album of the year so far, it's King's Disease 2. And like, it didn't do crazy commercial numbers, but you have to kind of set that aside when looking at a Drake and Kanye
And the
project.
thing too about these albums is that they were both designed to be these juggernauts in the streaming era, because if you look at the track list, Donda is 27 songs, right?
Yeah.
And CLB is 21 songs. So they were designed to have success in the streaming age. And not only that, but if you really think about it, these are the two biggest albums that we've gotten in the last few years, probably all the way back since, 2018. So it's cool to see kind of the impact, and the reason why we're kind of, putting them together into one video, because from the beginning of these rollouts, these albums were kind of binded together, and this is the closest thing that we've been getting to a huge sales battle in the industry, so it's only fitting to talk about them together. So let's actually start off with the first week sales. So Donda actually sold 309,000 copies first week, and 37,000 of those were actually coming from pure sales. And this is Kanye's highest first week sales since Yeezus back in 2013, which is pretty impressive. And it's cool to see that he did this while putting out the album on a Sunday. So he actually lost 2 days of sales that would have been counted if you included the Friday and Saturday, which he missed out on.
Very impressive, especially what he was able to do with the streaming days. Like, in the first day, Donda, like the streams for Donda were 95 million on Spotify. The second day streams were 102 million, and on the third day, 72 million. So you could kind of understand like where the success of Donda is coming from, because the track list was optimized for streaming. Like, you had legitimately every single one of the biggest artists in the industry on the track list, except for Drake. Like, legit, like, you had everyone on there. You even had a single with Lil Baby and The Weeknd. Like,
yeah, it's massive, man.
Two of the biggest artists in the industry from 2020 on one song. Like, I feel as if like it was greatly impacted because the album was still great. Like, you still got an amazing listen, but yet it was crazy because the marketing behind it was really nice. So how do you think let's say the listening parties and the whole marketing behind Donda helped them, let's say, rejuvenate this? Because this is one of his biggest first week debuts in like 10 years. Like, the last time he did it was with Yeezus.
This is his best rollout, and I think that if he had put it on the Friday, he probably could have sold 400 to 450,000 copies first week, which is huge. And like you were saying, with the features, what's awesome about the streaming era is that so many listeners actually will search up someone like Lil Baby and they'll see a new feature pop up on Donda. Same thing for The Weeknd. So he's bringing in the biggest fan bases in the world to one album, and he really executed well on that front. But speaking about Certified Lover Boy, it actually sold officially,
613,000 copies.
613,000 copies. 46,000 are actually coming from pure sales.
That's still impressive though. 46,000 on first week.
I just want to note that this is actually his lowest first week sales since his debut album Thank Me Later in 2010, which sold 447,000 copies first week. But this is still insane, man. Like, nobody's putting up 600,000 copies anymore.
Listen to these streaming numbers for Certified Lover Boy. Listen to this. First day streams were 155 million on Spotify. Second day streams were 89.9 million.
Less than Donda's second day streams.
Which is interesting, though. And because I think it's like, everyone like kind of bought into the hype after like the day after it dropped because it was such like a surprise drop. It was kind of unconventional on like dropping on the Sunday, and then on the third day you had 60 million streams on Spotify, and then if you go onto the total streams for first week total streams, you have 743 million streams. That's second highest ever behind Scorpion's 745.
Yeah, and
which is
compare
fucking
that
impressive.
to Donda, which got 341 million streams in its first week total. And what's interesting is that Certified Lover Boy outstreamed Donda in just 3 days of being out. So by the time that Donda hit 423 million streams, it took only 3 days. And that was, by the way, in 8 days. So in 8 days, Donda hit 423 million. But in only 3 days, Certified Lover Boy surpassed that by having 430 million streams on all streaming platforms. So it's cool to see that, you know, at this point, they could be competitive because the numbers in certain areas are similar. But Drake is just going to be that dominant guy when it comes to commercial success, and he's proving that even with the chart success. So let's actually move on to that now. And what's cool about Donda is that on the Billboard Hot 100, it actually got 2 entries in the top 10. You had Hurricane, which actually debuted at number 6, and then Jail, which debuted at number 10. And again, you had the 2 songs that had the most buzz behind the features, because you had the Return of the Throne, with Jay-Z, and then you had Hurricane with Lil Baby and The Weeknd. So are you surprised that those are the 2 songs that made it in the top 10?
No, I really like, you kind of knew what was going on. I was surprised Off the Grid though wasn't a part of that collection, but it was quite interesting because the first song that you heard people talking about was Jail, because obviously at the first listening party, you know, you got to find out that Jay-Z was going to be on this album. So already you could see how those listening parties kind of helped the anticipation of that single. Same thing for Hurricane, like Mike Dean asking questions on Twitter, like so many people thinking about when it's going to drop. Is it going to drop before the album comes out? There was so many pre-made narratives for these singles that it helped Kanye when the album actually dropped, because there was no fucking single to Donda. You didn't need to come out with a lead single.
No,
and
he
I
didn't.
think, and I do think to a certain extent that are lead singles even needed anymore, especially after
Not if you're at that status. If you're Kanye level, no.
But the thing is like, even take Drake's rollout, for example. There's no lead single to CLB.
True.
And we saw what he did with Scorpion in 2018, where he had 2 of them. What was it, 2 or 3? He had
God's Plan,
Nonstop, and he had something else.
I don't know. Nonstop wasn't a single, but you had Nice for What.
I'm going to go check this out.
You had
Hold on.
Nice for What. You had God's Plan, and maybe one more. But I don't think Nonstop was one of them. But speaking about Kanye, I mean, all 23 songs from Donda actually made it on the Hot 100 chart, which is actually pretty impressive. But what did you see on Nonstop?
Okay, so hold on. So it says Scorpion was supported by the singles God's Plan, Nice for What, I'm Upset, Don't Matter to Me, and My Feelings, Nonstop, and Mob Ties. But I'm having a hard time.
But these were pushed as singles afterwards.
I
so.
think. I have to see.
Yeah.
I listen. I can't really have the information.
But
Now,
yeah,
if you guys have that,
songs
leave
like
it in there.
songs like Don't Matter to Me were pushed, for the
After.
radio play afterwards as singles. But speaking now on Certified Lover Boy's chart success, this is where it gets really interesting, because Drake has rapped about it before. He lives on the fucking charts, man, and it's no different here. He just scored his 9th #1 hit song with Way Too Sexy featuring Young Thug and Future. One of the songs that I'm the most disappointed with this year. Really didn't fuck with it at all, to be honest, but you could have told that it was kind of designed to be a hit with those features, with the sample of, I'm too sexy for my shirt. It just had all the perfect ingredients. And
well, it's also like it got people talking. Like, people were so like, that's what I find interesting about the music industry, is like, you'll see certain singles be pushed out for certain reasons. Like, when you look at a song like Way Too Sexy,
it's a fucking joke.
No, it's I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a joke. People listen, people fuck with it, but it's like, it's almost like Shameless in the sort of like approach to getting a commercial hit. Like, you don't give a fuck. Like, he knew what he had to do and what he had to execute on in order to get it. Like, there was shock value behind the song piece. People are like, did this really make CLB? And then after a while, there's people that are gonna fuck with it because they liked Future's verse on it, or like they liked Young Thug on it, or they liked Drake, or they liked the music video, or they had to go see Kawhi in the music video, or they wanted to see like the quirky stuff that was going on.
It's
with
also
it.
the #1 sound on TikTok right now.
So
it has that appeal too, man. When you jump into that lane, the same way that he had 2C Sly become a huge TikTok hit, he knows what he's doing. It's all part of the plan. And like, listen, I'll never bump the song myself, but I do see the appeal behind it. I get why it was done, and Drake was having fun with the song. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of He's very self-aware in what the song is.
I know.
And that's what's cool about it.
I want to read something out though.
Yeah.
This is fucking interesting. That's coming from CLB, and I think this is one of the coolest accomplishments I've ever seen from done by an artist. He is the first artist in history to simultaneously have debut all top five songs on the Hot 100. Okay, it goes like this: Way Too Sexy was at number 1, Girls Want Girls was at number 2, Fair Trade was number 3, Champagne Poetry was number 4, and Knife Talk was number 5. Like,
amazing, man.
that's fucking nuts. Like, that's crazy.
What's crazy too is that if you look at the impact of an album like Certified Lover Boy, the proof is in the pudding, because if you look at some of the featured artists like Yebba, for example, Yebba released her album 1 week after she was featured on CLB. If you look at an artist like Thames, who was featured on the song Fountains, her album is releasing Friday. It's all part of the plan. They're capitalizing on the moment because they know what the fuck it means to be on a record-breaking album like Certified Lover Boy. They know how much of an audience they're going to build from that, and they're capitalizing by putting albums out. So I just love how Drake is giving opportunities to artists now.
No, that's for sure. And like really great artists that do deserve the exposure. So overall, I also think that the album cover had a major part to play in its first week numbers. Like, I think once people sort of saw the first week, like we're going into like that first week, like you could see how companies understood the marketing genius behind that album cover. Like, we had mentioned it on the podcast a bunch of times before, that companies like Amazon and Jeep were making their own versions of Drake's CLB cover, and the hip hop community was really not a fan of it. People said it was one of the worst album covers they've ever seen. I'm kind of divided on it. I don't know how I feel, because the marketing side of me says like that's fucking genius, because I understand what it does for the numbers, but the hip hop fan that's in love with album covers like Ready to Die, or let's say the Eminem Show, are like, oh, I don't know about that.
Listen, man,
that's not it.
I respect it as an industry move, because no publicity is bad publicity, and I got a fucking conversation going.
That's it. Like,
that was the whole point of it, man.
Think about how many people were talking about CLB before it even dropped. Like, before there was even anything. Like, people were gas, like, fueling this whole narrative of Drake dropping CLB because of the haircut, because of the album cover, because of all the speculation that was going on behind it, because of him taking out, his girl to, let's say, a private date at like the Dodger Stadium. Like, there was way too many things that were perfectly placed intact up to the lead up of CLB that made it so interesting. Another thing that I think was genius was how Drake dropped literally a week after. Drake dropped a week after Donda, because he played into that whole hype. He knew what people wanted to hear. It was like, okay, if he would have dropped this a month after, that whole narrative of Donda versus CLB would have been completely lost.
But it helped them both. I think that the whole feud really helped both of the albums sell a lot more than they would have if they weren't intertwined the way that they were. But it's just cool to see that they used everything that they could have to their advantage to sell these albums and, to put out good music at the end of the day. But let's now move on to the actual broken records from both of these albums. And this is massive. And I will say that there are a lot more for Certified Lover Boy, so I'll get the Donda ones out of the way first. So what Kanye did in terms of breaking records is that he actually set a new record by reaching number 1 on Apple Music on their top albums chart in 152 countries just in 24 hours of release.
Yeah, the impact was undeniable. I feel as if everyone had to tune into that. Not only that, but he is the only artist alongside Eminem to have 10 number 1 albums
consecutively.
That is a massive fucking accomplishment. Like, it just goes to show how Kanye's motto never really breaks.
Consistency, right?
People just buy his stuff and they love it because it's good stuff. Like, you know that you're getting good quality music when you're going into a Kanye album. If you want to maybe judge it to certain other albums, you want to do a discography ranking, you want to see how it's going, that's a completely different conversation. But when it goes into the album, like, if you're not even a Kanye fan, you're going to listen to Donda. It's just that simple. Like, you want to know what the hype's about, you want to know what people are talking about, and you also want to know, like, what happened with those listening parties, because those listening parties had a major part to play in that. Like, people wanted to see if the narratives was true. It was like, fuck, okay, like, at one point I feel as if like the hope was kind of lost with Donda. Was like, oh, is it ever gonna drop? Like, what's gonna happen with it? And then boom, when it finally does, everyone's going after it, and everyone's gonna consume it. Not only that, but Remember when he came out and said that the album was put out without his permission? Think about how many other people of his fans actually wanted to go listen to it after that, being like, "Fuck, like what did he?"
No,
want?
I think all his fans already heard it before then.
No, but
like,
think about how many other people want to go listen to it after that because it made major headlines.
it
like,
did, yeah. It's more publicity for him.
Kanye
for sure.
put himself in the limelight once again, being like, I don't like. I didn't intend for this to be out at this moment, so it gave people an extra incentive to go into the album. But how do you feel about Donda breaking these records? And it's just crazy to see this happening in 2021. Like, it's just the evolution has been absolutely incredible.
Man, it made worldwide headlines everywhere because of the way that he went about the album rollout, and it was genius too because within all the hype, he actually had a message. He actually had something to say, and the way that he mixed in messages of the power of God and how God has gotten him through so many obstacles in life, mixing that in with him channeling the spirit of his mother and actually accepting her loss while also using her advice to get through his divorce. It was beautiful and it was so personal from Kanye, and that was something that was missing on Jesus is King. So it's cool to see an album that's this deep and this introspective from Kanye do the numbers that it did. I'm so happy for him. But now moving on to Certified Lover Boy. To start off, in 24 hours, it broke the record for the biggest debut in Spotify history by putting up 155 million streams. And it actually broke the record from Drake's previous album, which was Scorpion, which had put up 132 million streams. And then if you go look at a song like Girls Want Girls, that broke another Spotify record for being the most streamed song in 24 hours, and that actually racked in 12.4 million streams. Then we also have the record that you mentioned earlier about how he is the first artist ever to actually debut 5 songs in the top 5 simultaneously for the Billboard Hot 100 chart, which is fucking amazing to see that being witnessed. Apart from that, he also extends his own record for being the rapper with the most #1 hit singles. He's at 9 right now after this, and nobody's fucking coming close to that anytime soon. But mind you, Travis is on his way. Travis has, I think, 3 #1s. So he's a third. He's a third of the way there.
I see it happening, though. Yeah. I think it could happen eventually. If you want to even go further with this, Drake Certified Lover Boy breaks the all-time record for most Hot 100 top 10 hits
from a single album.
From a single album, which was 9, and it surpasses Michael Jackson's Thriller. And we have Rhythm Nation 1814, Born in the USA, and Drake's Scorpion,
which also had 8 songs from an album be in the top 10 hits of the Hot 100. So Drake is, I mean, it's nothing new for him to say that he has more slaps than the Beatles and that he's beating these Michael Jackson records, because on commercial success, he's on that level. He truly is one of the most successful artists of all time, and no matter how much hate his music gets, you have to credit him on what he's able to do in terms of reaching a demographic, and not only one demographic, but almost every fucking demographic. Like, this has never been seen before in hip-hop, and I feel like a lot of these records that he's breaking, they're not going to be touched for a long time.
No,
man.
They won't be touched for a long time. So at the end of the day, I think both of these albums took massive W's as far as commercial success goes and as far as numbers go. So one more question. Do you, like, now that you've seen the full evolution of the albums and you've started from the beginning and now that we're at the end, how did you fuck with the marketing, and that do you think that it added an extra value to things?
Of course, man. It was genius on both ends. With Donda, you got a rollout that lasted so long, and that was a beautiful experience for, showing us the evolution of the music and showing Kanye's actual performance art, and to see how his emotions in the album were showed by his movements at the listening party. So everything about that experience was a joy to witness. And in terms of Drake Certified Lover Boy, it was hyped for over a year. You had a very efficient rollout. On the flip side, you had him come out with these billboards announcing the artists who were featured on the album in these major cities. And of course, the album cover, which got everybody talking. So 2 polar opposite album rollouts, but both executed to perfection. And a lot of artists need to take notes about how these guys did it. But I will say, as revolutionary as some of these rollouts are, I mean, it does take a billionaire to rent out a fucking stadium for 10 days. So not everybody can replicate this. Same thing for renting out all these billboards. But we do have to admire them and think about the different strategies they use to build hype. So that's kind of how I feel.
That is true. Yeah, I'm on that same level. Like, I was inspired by the marketing behind this because it was genius. Like, the way you're able to communicate a piece of art to so many people is really, 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 really impressive for me. And the way that both of them carried out their rollouts was seamless. Like, Drake was in this Certified Lover Boy zone for over a year now, like with the haircut and with the teasing, with the trailer. Like, he put in massive work into this. And the same part for Kanye, like doing 4 listening parties in including Las Vegas, is really fucking impressive. And the way that he was able to carry out the hype and still execute was absolutely immaculate. But guys, on that note, thank you so much for watching. As we always say, we will keep you updated throughout the whole industry. So, whatever albums are getting announced, album reviews, whatever it is, we'll keep you updated. So subscribe if you have not already.
And yeah, and by the way, guys, we actually have a video coming out next week on if Certified Lover Boy and Donda lived up to the hype. So stay tuned for that. And that's going to be kind of our major recap episode next week for Donda and CLB, but maybe we'll do more content as it comes. But like Ant was saying, we're covering the biggest releases of the year. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for watching the video. It's always a pleasure doing content for you guys. Listen, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because we're doing album reviews, and we actually have our series called Everything We Know, where we take you guys through the whole album rollout of the hottest releases of the year. Not only that, guys, but our Patreon plan is now live. You guys can access that in the bio. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.